Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Christine Galib and I am Senior Director of Programs at the ION here in Houston, Texas. So you can kind of see, I do want to brag a little bit about our space because this is our brand new building. It's actually not brand new. It's the Sears, one of the Sears headquarters here in Houston that we have repurposed on the interior. You can kind of see me showing off the building here. We've repurposed this on the interior to be a tech, talent, and innovation hub here in Houston. So I'm thrilled to be here in the office. But today, what we're talking about goes beyond the ION building. And so just a few things before I call up today's discussion partner. I want to say panelists, but it's just the two of us for today. So that means we'll have a really great discussion. Just a few things. We are here for the Acceleration Summit series with Ideagen. And Ideagen is such a fabulous organization. They are the glue that holds the globe together because they're uniting everyone, anywhere you are, to a common and shared vision of achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so today we'll be spending some time talking a little bit about one of these goals, goal number 11. Before I get there though, I do want to say that I am so thrilled to be part of this movement, this conversation. I am the Ideagen honorary chair for the Houston-Galveston region. And from that position, I get to spotlight all the great work that the ION's partners, peers, and friends of the ION are doing. So I would love to call up today one of our partners, General Assembly, represented here by one of my friends. I've gotten a chance to get to know her over the past really 2 years or so. Most of our relationship has been virtual due to COVID and being able to work from home. But I'd love to call up to the stage Gabby. So Gabby, come on up to the virtual stage. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, General Assembly.
Thank you so much. And I am really thrilled to be here. Thank you, Christine. I love our collaboration. So my name is Gabriela Zahoranska. I am originally from Slovakia, but I am working in Houston for General Assembly. So I opened GA Houston in 2019 when I met first time Christine. And since then, I opened 5 more locations on the West Coast. General Assembly is a technology education company, so we are focusing on bringing more people into technology, to opening door for them in great technology companies and actually equipping them with technology skills such as user experience design, software engineering, or data science. We started in New York 10 years ago, but now we are in 40 plus cities all around the world.
I love that. So General Assembly and really under your leadership, Gabby, being able to expand into cities that are really actively tackling these challenges of digital equity, of the digital divide. When we talk about tech careers of the future, we keep kind of saying, well, the future is so far away, but I think the past year really showed us that the future is here. And if we're not actively preparing for that, then we're going to be at a loss in terms of upskilling and particularly tech jobs. So I'd love to dig a little deeper here in our conversation. And Gabby, if you could please kind of get to the topic of sustainable cities. How is General Assembly, through the work that you all are doing with the participants and the programs, how are you building sustainable cities across the nation and across the globe?
On one side, I would say we are focusing on building community in every city where we have presence. When you enter General Assembly space in each of our cities, it's mostly a space for learning. So everyone who wanna learn something new, who wanna get into community, connect, and make great things happen, can actually come, and actually amazing connections are happening at GA. And without partnership, without collaboration, we cannot really solve big issues as sustainable and resilient cities. Like, it's a huge challenge. On other side, by equipping people with technology and digital skills, they can rebuild their neighborhoods because they get amazing jobs with good careers, so they can actually contribute more to the community and actually change the whole neighborhoods. And on the I would say third side or last point is that our graduates are people who are equipped with skills like user experience design or data. And when you think about how data can help to distribute resources, help to analyze like how the resources are maybe not distributed in the right way, how let's say, people are moving around cities, which parts are sustainable, which parts need more help, or with user experience design, they can practically look into the challenges of the cities. They can help to change them. These are skills that are necessary for rebuilding cities, making them better, and making life in our cities better.
I love that. And Gabby, you said a few words that really stick out to me. Community, connection, right? These words that we say all the time, but I love how GA and the ION, of course, we are creating the space and the programs for this community to form and for these connections to happen. And so I want to spend a little bit of time here because, what does it really mean to have a community, right? When GA students come together, what does that really look like for learning, for education, for training?
So when you think about our programs or even our webinars, all our programming that we are putting together, there are people from various journeys of life. There are people who, let's say, worked in large corporations. There are people who are recent graduates. There are people who are starting startups. There are people with various knowledge, and on top of this knowledge, they're adding technology and digital skills. So the mix of all this knowledge, all these skills, all these collaborations, when they're working on the projects in groups, can really help out in many challenges, such as for cities and making cities better, making communities better, and improving practically challenges that otherwise, if they would be working separately in just their bubbles, they wouldn't be able to contribute into. And on the other side, in terms of communities, all practically our programming that we are putting together in the evenings, lunch and learns, morning breakfast, all is actually fully accessible for everyone in public. Everyone can join, everyone can come to us. So that means even people don't have any barrier to join this community. So they can come and they can really practically see for themselves. They can explore various skills. They can explore various, let's say, even challenges. Not everyone is familiar with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But for instance, we had many discussions, we had many webinars, we had many roundtables actually focused on many of these goals. Many, for instance, even issues like diversity. So that means like it's an open space. And I think the fact that it's open and we are collaborating with partners with various areas means that people can really, if they are interested, if they have any little interest, they can join. They don't need to, for instance, be part of some, let's say, elite group or anything like that. They can just practically come, join, and learn, and if they feel like, contribute.
I love that, because a lot of what you're saying here, Gabby, there is a non-linear element to the community that GA has created. And that brings these perspectives where, as a learner, I'm suddenly in a workshop with someone who might be a 30-year seasoned executive director. I might be in the room with a learner who is just sinking their teeth into user design, into marketing, into storytelling, for example. So this mix of people, I think, coming together really speaks to how GA is mitigating or eliminating, right? We always try to eliminate these barriers to education. And I think that's part of the challenge that faces cities is we've got these kind of traditional models or frameworks of thinking, but I want to go back to something you said about user design, user experience. Can you talk a little bit more about how that type of thinking helps cities be more sustainable, resilient, diverse, collaborative?
So the main goal of cities is to make sure that people have a good place to live, that we can actually have great public transportation that really help us, that is sustainable, and practically that really gets people from point A to point B fast, and people are comfortable using it. Without user experience, user research, how people actually commute in the city, that wouldn't be possible. You need to do research about how people actually are using cities, from which neighborhood they mostly go to, which neighborhood, where they need to get, where you need to put stops, and so on. So for instance, transportation is a good example for that. Or for instance, common spaces like parks, community centers. You need to explore what people actually need, what is actually that people are asking for, what will benefit the community, or how to actually make sure that you are practically accumulating people on the spaces that are available to them, that are easily accessible to them. In terms of sustainability, the same, like you need to make sure that people have access to resources, to practically projects that are making cities sustainable. From, let's think about recycling. If you will put, now it's just top of my head, like if you put like the recycling machine somewhere in the end of the neighborhood when no one really have time to go, it probably wouldn't work, and people wouldn't really be keen to start doing it, helping, going there and taking everything from their home to actually recycle, or taking garbage. But when you put it in the place where people actually are commuting through, or actually it's accessible from their home, you can make it happen much more easier, because for people it wouldn't be so much hassle. They don't need to put extra effort to actually do it. Same for the example of public transport. If you think about neighborhood and let's say metro stop would be 2 kilometers of walk, or let's say in miles, let's say some 1 mile of walk in Houston summer, probably people wouldn't be keen to do it. But when you think about it, and when you put it somewhere close to them, when you actually make sure that they can easily go there, they can easily practically, instead of sitting in the car for 1 hour commuting somewhere, be in a sustainable train, connecting to other people, communicating them, and meeting their neighbors, even making new friendships, it's different. And thanks to user experience design, you can find out where are these points, where you need it.
I love that. And, I know we've always aligned on workforce development and tech training and upskilling, but now you're kind of keying into one of my other interests and passions, which is the placemaking aspect of a city, right? How are we, and you mentioned kind of a journey from A to B, and I immediately thought, oh my God, but that's a line. But our journeys, as you've said, our journeys are nonlinear in a city, right? And so that's the challenge for people who love modeling, because it's really difficult to predict nonlinear behavior. But I think central to this conversation of sustainable cities is how we use places and how places collide with people. I have a thing for P words. If you've heard me before on some of our shows here, you know that places and people and programs to all come together to make the cities a livable, walkable place that we want to be. I think that's what's at stake here. So I love what you're saying. And I love where this conversation is headed, because at the center of user design is, who is the user and who is helping design that recycling example. You mentioned Houston summer, and I said, you know what, if I got to walk an extra step in the Houston summer, I'm not doing anything, right? So how do we design to behavior and to preference and to making sure that usability and accessibility, because sometimes not everybody is at the design table. And I think that's another challenge that we have as cities, is to make sure that there are avenues and routes for people to express their voice and to have that voice be amplified. So I love what you're saying. I want to tackle a little bit more here. What other types of challenges do you think, or have you seen just kind of bubble up as you've done this work? Maybe with respect to launching programs, or making sure that there's digital equity and inclusion. Any challenges that you've seen that are top of mind for you, and how did you mitigate them?
I would say that for me, the challenge number one was to educate about what is actually, for instance, user experience design. User experience design is not something that people could study at school or on university 30 years ago. For many people, this term was very new. Like, what is user experience design? They imagine design as a visual design. but to let them understand that user experience design is very, very different thing, and it's necessary for all discipline. It's not just for designers. User experience design is something that you can use literally in almost every role in the company, because you need to think about the end user. You need to make sure that you are making your product or your solutions actually focused on how user will use it, how he will actually benefit from it. In terms of data, for instance, many people could imagine like under data science and data analytics working with Excel. So that means to explain like what everything you could do with data, how you can leverage it to, let's say, for modeling things, for actually analyzing, for improving your solutions, because you can really allocate the resources the correct way thanks to analyzing data of how things are used and where actually the resources are needed. For software engineering, I would say that was the easiest, because when you think about it, people can imagine what is coding. That coding is literally behind everything what we use on our laptops, on our computers, on our phones. But I would say to just educate general public, like because we are talking about user experience design because we heard about it, we took some classes, but not everyone is at that stage. Like as we are trying to tap on many neighborhoods, people from all backgrounds, we need to start really from the beginning and making sure that they understand what we are talking about before we are actually teaching them the skills.
I love that. And you said coding. And when you said coding, I thought to myself, I am not a coder. I have never been a coder. When you say code, I think The Matrix, which probably gives an indication of how old I am and what sci-fi, obviously, I like that. But I think something you said is very important. If we can train anybody to think about, what is kind of behind the laptop, what is behind the software, what makes that the world what it is. And it's like placemaking, right? The code and is what builds the software, just like kind of the buildings are what build the city. And so we've got to have a different approach to city building, to tech careers that marries all of these different interests and integrates design thinking, sustainability from the ground up. And so I'd love now just to kind of tilt the conversation a little bit. Who are the partners and collaborators that have helped you kind of get to this place where we can begin to reframe the conversation? And what has their role been?
Just to add on the previous conversation about actually what was the challenge, just to add to educating actually the general public, the reason is why we actually focus so much on educating what these terms even mean is that it's hard to expect someone to start learning it or be interested in it when they don't even know what they can do with it. So to build a main interest, to kind of make it accessible to everyone. About partnerships and about how we actually are collaborating in Houston, for me, I really value the ION as the partner. Like, you were so great to us. You were so welcoming. You make us feel like home in Houston. So number one, I always would say the ION. I'm sharing it in many other cities that how our collaboration started. There are great organizations in Houston, like for instance, Houston Exponential, who just organized the Houston Tech Rodeo, which was a fantastic event. We are collaborating with many groups that are focused, let's say, on women, because we are trying to make sure that the technology space, digital space, and all these things that we just talked about are accessible to everyone, and everyone from various diverse backgrounds, all genders, can actually be part of the solution. So we are collaborating with groups like Girls in Tech in Houston. They're a fantastic partner. I would say Houston surprised me as a newbie to Houston with how open the space is and how collaborative the space is. Maybe not everyone understand it, because if you maybe grow up there, maybe if you live there for years, you think that it's everywhere the same, but it's not. Like, Houston was very special to us because the ecosystem is very, very, very close, very, I would say, friendly and open. Maybe it's because it's like Southern mindset, but I would say we had very good experience. And in terms of collaboration for us, it was mostly about many discussions. It always has to start about, like, are we on the same page? Are we focusing on the same things? Are we trying to approach the community the same way and reach, let's say, the same solutions or like focus on the same activities. And once we find out we are with some partners on the same page, like for instance with the ION, it's easy to find a way how we can, let's say, bring some programming to communities that need it, because we can practically talk to each other. We can find out who is really in need, how to actually help them. We can actually go a really through process to finding out that we are targeting the right group and we are helping to the right people. So I would say for us, in terms of partnerships, all my work is around partnerships. It's all about collaboration. We as General Assembly, and I would say many organizations would say the same, we cannot do it alone. We cannot just come somewhere to a new city and be like, hey, we are GA, come to us. No, we need to learn about the communities. We need to learn about people. We need to learn what people need, how we can help out before we actually start doing something.
And I will say, I love what you've said, because Gabby, you're exactly that type of person. You show up, you're dialoguing, we're discussing, and everything we do has been so needs aligned. And we are creating something that is so needs aligned, right? I'll repeat that phrase, because we're uncovering the emergent needs and saying, how do we meet those needs? We're not coming in and saying, well, let's recreate this or let's recreate that. We're designing exactly what the city of Houston needs. And I think that's really special. So Gabby, I want to thank you here for being the face of that, for showing up, for piloting a class with us, or for engaging our stakeholders. And really over the past year, we've all kind of gone virtual, but now we're ready to be back in person. And one of the first groups we called was Gabby at General Assembly, because we're ready for it. And she said the ION's her home. The ION is her home. She has access to all of this here when she's in Houston. But I want to also focus a little bit on what's your advice for others who are doing this work? We've talked about challenges. We've talked about building that education, that literacy. We've talked about partnerships. So what's top of mind advice for our listeners, maybe in Houston, maybe in Galveston, maybe all over the country, all over the world? Your advice.
My key advice would be something that just don't stop. Just continue. The reason is, imagine when we started in Houston in 2019, in the end of 2019 virtually, we had issue to get 5 people to the room to listen about, let's say, software engineering, or listen about how data can improve, let's say, some business functions, or how actually, or to just listen to amazing female entrepreneurs in Houston. We had a really small audience. When I think about it today, our audience is often 100, 200 people who register for the webinar from Houston to listen to these stories. So just don't stop, just go and continue your work, talk to new people, talk to new communities, because even though sometimes it can be frustrating even, like, because you feel like, okay, you really are putting so much work and so small amount of people actually care, but the interest will grow. You just need to continue educating. You just need to continue connecting. You just need to continue bringing these challenges, issues, and this inspiration in front of people and new communities, because once they will come to, let's say, one webinar, one event, they will start understand that how actually this can help them, how this can actually contribute to their life, to their careers, to their neighborhoods, and what they can actually do with their life. So just continue. Just make sure you won't stop.
I love that. I was going to say, is there anything else that you want to share in our conversation today? But I think you knocked it out of the ballpark with that one. So is there anything else? If not, we can end on that note, but there might be something else.
I just want to say thank you, Christine, for everything you do. You are really our Houston hero.
Well, how about this? We're both the Houston heroines. How about that? Because Gabby, the work you do, the literacy building, and I will say GA's model, they have info sessions you could come to for free to learn literally what the words mean, right? And for someone like me, I didn't come from a tech background. I am not an engineer. I don't have a coding background. I have learned a ton just about the language, sitting in on the info sessions. And then I've taken a few longer boot camps. They have, a day or 2 days or so, and then they've got the longer programs for when you're ready to take your next steps. So it's this scaffolded, purposeful approach that I think really gets to the user, right? And meets the user where they are so that they can have the education they need to take their next career steps in tech-related fields. So, Gabby, thank you for your work. I will close this out today. Thank you to all of our viewers, our listeners. Again, my name is Christine Galib. I'm Senior Director of Programs at the ION, and it's been a real pleasure speaking with Gabby, learning from her. Thank you to Ideagen for facilitating this incredible summit, to Christian for all of your work, just showing up and being here for us, to George, to Cooper, to others. Thank you. Thank you. It is this community that really makes the work worthwhile. So thank you all. Take care.